What's going on, y'all? This is another episode of the Forfeit Fatherhood podcast. I am your host, Rod, and I'm just going to jump right into it. This is another one of those just me episodes, right? I don't have a guest on this episode. It's just me. And I wanted to go over some things that I've been thinking about this week, some things that I've been talking to a couple of people about. And, I was approached by a dad the other day who was kind of like struggling. I think that's the best way to put it. Struggling with where to go next, having some issues with parenting between him and his wife, having some issues with being around and being present for his kids. A variety of different things, like things that we all struggle with, right? Like we all have at some point some issue with our significant other. We all at some point have some issue with our children and parenting, or at least trying to figure out and understand and navigate those two things, trying to figure out where to go and what to do next. So in this episode, I just want to talk about kind of the journey, right? Kind of like where you're at, where you're going, where you want to be, and how to get there. Okay. So I talked about this the other day. I went live. I'm actually, here's something that's pretty cool. So this is the podcast, right? I'm in David Shan's Launch a Podcast Challenge group. And we've been kind of forced to do these lives in the group. And for some people, it's obviously uncomfortable. For myself, you know what? Hold on, let me back up. Let me go all the way back to the beginning. So I think by the time this episode is out, it's going to be September 11th. And it's a pretty big day, right? 20-year anniversary of September 11th. I remember exactly where I was when it happened. I was in college, I think my freshman or sophomore year, just walking on the campus because I had a early morning class. I was in the cafeteria getting some breakfast, and on the TV, you see the building, right? The first plane had already hit, and then shortly after, live, we get to see the second plane hit, and it was a sobering moment. Like, I'm not rah rah America type dude. I am more now than I was then. I was a young kid. I wasn't, thinking about it that way. But that was a moment that threw our country into like a really unified position in some regards, right? And it definitely put us in like more of a war stance. And the reason I bring it up and it is because not only were their lives lost in the actual tower incident, right? In the terrorist attack, there were lives lost. And some of those were fathers, just like you and I, like they were just going to work or were just traveling just on a regular day and had their lives taken from them. But along these last 20 years, that kind of put us in a position where a lot of the young men decided to go to war, enrolled, enlisted, and a lot of lives were lost. A lot of fathers were lost. A lot of families were broken up because of the loss of a father, of a parental figure. So I want to just take a moment of silence for those that were lost and for that tragic event. So I'm going to do that, like, 30 seconds. Just, you do what you want with it. If you're riding in your car, if you're listening at the gym, just stop moving for a second, and we'll take a moment of silence. All right. Okay, so now back to what I was talking about. So I had a guy ask me, what to do, I offered to give just kind of a little bit of tough love, because I feel like with fathers, the fathers that I deal with, typically on the training side, right, trying to help them lose weight, get in shape. But then also, throughout the course of their journey, we have these conversations on a weekly basis, and it generally turns into like fatherhood, relationships with your children, relationship with significant other, because we have like real relationship. Like we're that's my dog, right? Like I'm helping them lose weight and get in shape, but the reason I'm doing it is so they can be a better father longer, right? And so, he asked me, and I told him it's something I had heard before, right? I heard a while back, and there's three. Let me do that right. There's three. There's three types of men in the world. Okay, You got your victims, you got your consumers, and you got your executors. Okay. Your victims, they're looking for every reason they can to not take action, right? They're actually blaming their situation on something that happened in the past. Like in fatherhood, this is one of those, I didn't have a father, I don't know how to be a father. Or in marriages or in relationships, I never saw a successful relationship, so I don't know how to be in one. We kind of get into these situations where we find reasons that actually the victims typically they subconsciously go out and find proof that they're a victim, right? Like they get into an argument with their wife and they're like, oh, see, I'm not a good communicator. Or they have some kind of parenting thing with their kid and they're like, see, like I don't know how to handle it because I never had a dad who showed me how to do. You know what I mean? We go out and we find things to support their victim stance. Like it just naturally all of a sudden the world starts to support that I'm a victim, right? Victims typically have every excuse for why they aren't successful and then why they can't be, right? The next level to that is consumer, right? And I call them consumers because consumers are now like victims aren't really aware that there is a problem, right? They're just like, the world, woe was me, the world is against me kind of thing, right? That's their problem, right? The consumer is like the next step, right? They realize there's a problem. They've now become problem aware and they're hungry, right? Which is great, which is excellent because now they know there's a problem, they want to fix it. But the problem with that is they find as many resources as possible. And then once they find all these resources, they turn into like white noise and they can't figure out now what to do because they have too many options. So now they're stuck and they don't know where to start, right? So they kind of mess around with some different things. They try one thing and then they try another thing and they kind of, all with varying degrees of success, but none of them really get them to where they want to be, right? They try this thing and they get a little bit of success and then they try this other thing and they're trying to combine things at the same time. And I got this program from here, or I downloaded this thing from there, or I listened to this podcast, or I watched this YouTube video, I read this book, and now I'm trying all these different people's methods and methodologies, and none of them are working. So then I go back to being a victim, right? It's not for me, right? The last level, this next level is the executor, okay? An executor is problem aware, right? They're just like the consumer, but now they're, instead of like taking all of these things, they pick a few things. They pick one or two of those things that they found as a consumer, and then they decide to go all in. Hey, they've been a victim, right? They've been a consumer. They don't want to go backwards, so they just pick one or two things and they go all in, right? Not only do they go all in, but they find accountability, right? They find an accountability group. Like I have a Facebook group specifically for dads called Brothers Helping Brothers, right? They find a group of people to support their situation, right? When I'm talking about weight loss, I have like this ebook, and one of the things that is in the ebook is creating an environment of support, right? And in that chapter, it's a very short chapter, but I'm talking about creating an environment, and that goes with the people that are around you, an environment of people that support you, right? Like in terms of like percentages, if I'm trying to accomplish something, right? There's a 10% success rate if I just say, hey, I have an idea of what I want to do, right? If I just have an idea, 10% of the time I can get it done, right? 25% of the time, if I have that idea and I know how to do it, I'm going to be successful. Like, oh, I want to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it. My chances of being successful have now increased from 10% to 25%. The next level of that is 40% of the time. If I know, like if I have my idea and I know how I'm going to do it, if I add a time to that, like say, all right, I know what I'm going to do, I know how I'm going to do it, this is when I'm going to do it by. 40% of the time with those three things, you can be successful, right? 50% of the time, if you know what you're going to do, how you're going to do it, when you need to do it by, and you tell someone, right? You tell someone, hey, look, this is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to do it. I need to do it by this date. And you go tell somebody, now you're 50-50, right? Like you can get it done or you cannot, right? Get it done or you cannot, but you're much better off than just having the idea, right? Here's the big one, 95% of the time. 95% of the time, if we have all of the above, we know our how, we know our what, we know our when, we've told somebody, 95% of the time, if we add in an accountability piece, that person that we told is going to hold us accountable to what we said. And on a weekly or whatever time frame basis you set up, 95% of the time you can be successful. Like if every Thursday, right, I told my friend that I'm going to do this, and this is how I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it by this date. And then every Thursday we're going to meet and get together, and you can critique where I'm at, right? I tell you what process I've been through. And this is why getting the coach is so important. This is why when people get into these groups or these challenges, or when they do, they get into coaching programs, this is why they see so much success, right? Like you could have success if you just have the idea, 10%. 10% of the time you're going to get it right, right? If you have the idea and you know how you're going to do it, 25% of the time you can get it right, right? If you have the idea, you know how, and then you put some time on it, 40% of the time, right? But if you really, really, really want to knock this thing out, you add in an accountability piece, right? Somebody who's going to hold you accountable to what you said you're going to do, right? Now, at any point, right? At any point, and for different things, we're going to be a victim, a consumer, or executor, right? Like in certain situations, I am an executor, right? In some situations, I'm a consumer. Very rarely, though, am I a victim, because I realize that that's the lowest possible level. As soon as I start to feel that victim feeling, I get up and get active, right? That's the only way to overcome it, right? If you feel like a victim, if you feel like you're a victim of your circumstances, the only way to overcome it is to execute, is to take action, right? Taking action might put you into the consumer realm. Like taking action, something is wrong here. I'm going to go find something to fix it, right? And you might listen to a podcast, right? But now once you listen to a podcast, you got to take something from it and go act on it, right? You got to take something from it and go act on it. So if your issue is you don't know how to communicate with your wife, right? And you realize, oh man, I was never a great communicator. Like I'm to myself. I don't really like to talk about my feelings. Okay, but you know that's a problem. Now, figure out how to talk about your feelings, right? Go find some resource. Go get a book. Go read the 5 love language, whatever it is, right? Go take some action and then execute on that action, right? Start to capitalize on that action. I'll speak for myself personally. Like I can say that at some point I was a victim in the relationship situation. Like me and my wife have been together since we're like 15, but my parents' relationship, I didn't really get to see it. I was a kid. I was like 5 when they separated. And then my mom remarried, and my stepdad was always at work. So they had like a, passing guard kind of relationship that I saw. And so like for me, what does that teach me? Right. My father is a workaholic, right? So he works all day. So him and my stepmom have that same kind of passing relationship. They don't really talk until the weekend. They don't see each other. So I brought that along into our marriage. And I realized that that's something that I have to change, like that it's affecting how well our relationship goes. So now I have to step out of that. I can't be a victim and be like, oh, this is all I know. This is how I grew up. This is what, this is what I've been, what's been demonstrated to me. I can take that attitude and continue to be a victim and then be out of my relationship, or I can move forward, find some solutions, and then pick one and execute, right? As far as being a parent, similar situation, like using those same examples. My father was out by the time I was like 6, like out for a little while. Like him and my mom had their little thing. And so in and out kind of, for a period of time, right? Stepdad comes in, he's never there. He's working all the time or he's asleep, right? I only get to see my dad every other weekend. And so who am I learning fathering from? Who am I learning how to be a father from? Right? I am definitely absorbing the different parts of, them that I'm getting, but was it a full 360? Probably not until I got into like high school. Like when me and my dad really got tight. I mean, on those weekends we spent together, don't get me wrong, those were amazing. We spent great time together. I learned a lot from him, a whole lot from him. It was an amazing time, right? My stepdad, I don't even know if I could say I learned anything from him other than like to work and take care of the family and some other very minor things, but I can't really honestly look back on any lessons that I learned that I use today that are valuable. And there's probably some, right? There's always something that you absorb and you use that you don't know, right? But I can't off the top of my head think of any of them, unfortunately, right? And not to say that he was a bad guy. He was doing what he had to do to provide for his family or what he thought was best. But those lessons I would have liked to have, right? Anyway, so I could be a victim. Say, I don't know how to be a father. I never had, I didn't learn I know how to be a father to a teenager, because that's when I felt like the fathering was really, really dope, right? It was amazing during that time. By the time I got to actually not a teenager, like sixth, seventh, eighth grade, to junior year, sophomore, junior year was dope, right? Every other weekend, great father time, right? Then I moved in with my dad in college for a little bit. Again, great father time. But that's spotty, right? Over the course of my life. So I could be a victim for sure and be like, I don't know how to father. And so I don't know what to do with these kids and nope. I went to being a consumer. I got books. I started listening to podcasts. I started doing whatever I could to figure out everything I needed to know, or at least give me an idea, an advantage going into this thing of what I need to know for fatherhood, right? And then I had kids and I just went all in, right? I went all in. Not only did I go all in, I talked to other fathers about it. This podcast is an example, right? It holds me accountable on a week-to-week basis. Either I am going to talk to you guys about fatherhood, or I'm going to talk to someone else about fatherhood, and you guys are going to listen and watch it, right? But on a weekly basis, I'm held accountable to fatherhood. Like, I get to hear what this guy is doing for fatherhood, what that guy's doing for fatherhood. And in between, I'm reading and researching and listening to other podcasts and watching other YouTube videos and sharpening my fatherhood skills, right? Because I want to be an executor in every facet of my life, right? So when you think about it, you got a couple options, right? If you're feeling like a victim, and a lot of people do, right? I mean, let's just think about it. Like, for us, for African American men, for Black men, our generation was fatherless, right? And we're trying to repair that. That's the purpose of what I'm doing now, is try to build up the fatherhood thing, right? Kind of like that fatherless generation. A lot of fathers weren't in the home, right? They weren't around, they weren't available, they were doing other things, or relationships didn't really work the way they were supposed to. So you could be a victim, right? Maybe something derailed you on your journey, something kind of threw you off of the path you thought you would be on. And that may not be your fault. Okay, it may not be your fault. Like, your father not being there is not your fault. You couldn't have done anything about it. Your mom and your dad splitting up, not your fault. Your mom and your dad not being in a real relationship, not your fault, right? Just something happened with your significant other. It may not have been your fault. It may have been her fault. May have been something that happened and you couldn't have done anything about it. There's no way you could have changed it. But you have options. Okay, you can accept it that it may not have been your fault. But at the same time, understand that if you don't do anything right now to change it, the consequences of that will be your fault. The consequences of not right now making a change, not going from victim to executor, that's going to be your fault, right? Like, you are a direct result of the decisions that you make, right? Right now, where you are right now, where you're listening to this, where you're hearing this, where you're watching this, is a result of the decisions that you made in the past. Now, some things may have happened that may not have been your fault, but you have been making decisions along the way that get you where you are right now. So understand that if you don't decide to do something about your situation, you will continue to be where you're at, right? Like, it may not have been your fault, but going forward, understanding and knowing what you know, it's going to continue to be your fault, right? It changes hands. Like, not your fault. Now it's your fault, right? But if you take control, if you're willing to take control, right? If you take control of the next steps in your life, if you take action, right? It's like the Morpheus thing, right? You can take the I don't remember which one. It's like the red pill. You can wake up the next morning and stay in the matrix, and you never knew this happened. Or you take that blue pill, right? Take the blue pill or green pill. It's one of those, right? And you unplug from the system. You get to see the real world for what it is. And you have an opportunity to make the decisions to change your life forever, right? So so I explained all that to you, and I explained it to him in just as long as a conversation. And it kind of went beyond that, but like that, I felt like that was the heart of it, right? And for a lot of us as fathers, as leaders, as men, playing the victim is a very, very dangerous game. right? We are in control of we are the master of our fate and the captain of our soul. Like in my frat, that's one of the big things, right? The Invictus by William Ernest Henley, right? The end of it, right? Like out of all the things that have happened, you are still the master of your fate and the captain of your soul, right? Out of the pit that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I think whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul, right? Like you haven't been conquered. Some things have happened, right? Your head is bloody but unbowed. Like things have happened to you, right? And they may not have been your fault, but now you have the opportunity to take right? So it's really important that you go from victim to consumer, right? And if you're listening to this podcast, that's some consumption for you, right? Now, hopefully you've heard what I said, right? You heard what I said, and now you're going to go out and execute whatever facet of life it is, right? Whether it's in your parenting, in your relationship with your wife. Because honestly, like when you have a good relationship with your wife or your girlfriend or your baby's mom or whatever the title is, when you have a good relationship with them, it bleeds into the relationship with your children. You may have a great relationship with your kids and a terrible relationship with their mom. But if you can patch that up in whatever way is necessary, like you get like, so you got a bad relationship with your baby mom. She makes it hard for you to see your kids. She's saying negative stuff about you to your kids, right? No matter how good your relationship with your kids, those negative things are affecting that relationship. If you can patch this up, right? And I know it's easier said than done. I'm not in the situation, so I don't know. I got it, right? I don't know what I'm talking about. But I know when me and my wife are vibing, when we're on the same plane, not only is like the house like smoother, but the relationship with the kids, like everybody feels it. It's a vibe, right? It's a vibe. So whether that's a relationship thing or if it's, you know, the thing with your kids or parenting or work or whatever, right? Whatever your situation is. I know it's tough, especially now and you know, the COVID situation, we're in the middle of the pandemic. Everybody feels like they're a victim of the circumstances, like you get shut down, we're locked down, we can't go around people, you got to wear masks, there's mandates, all these different things, right? You can play the victim or you can figure out how to take action and execute. Right, I talked to Charles Oglesby last episode, Todd Billy, and he had probably one of the most successful years of his career during the pandemic, when a lot of people were like, I can't do anything, businesses can't work, got to shut down, right? Took advantage of the opportunity. I mean, it's a lot of guys, right? A lot of guys took advantage of the opportunity. A lot of people took advantage of the opportunity. So you have a choice. You can be a victim, you can be a consumer, you can be an executor. The choice is yours, right? I sincerely hope that you get rid of whatever victim situation you have in your life and you start at least realizing that there's a problem and work to solve it, right? All right, guys, I'm gonna wrap this up. I actually got to go get my kids from school, got to go do the father thing, right? So I got to go sit in the pickup line. Oh, man. All right, fellas. So I'll catch you next week and deuces.